To my lawyers, should you be charging flat fees or hourly? Most lawyers think billing hourly is the safe option, but it might actually be keeping you stuck. And flat fees, they sound great unless you underprice and end up working for free. I'm Darcel Lobo. I'm a solo attorney who teaches you how to open and build a successful law firm. Let's break down the real pros and cons of hourly versus flat fee so you can decide what works for your law firm and for your life. Let's just start by breaking down hourly billing. I think pretty much all of us know already is billing in increments for the time spent, usually in 6-minute intervals. This is very common in your litigation type practices, family law, more complex matters. You're going to see a lot of hourly billing. Now you can see it in all practice areas, but that's primarily where I see it the most. Let's cover some of the pros of hourly billing. First off, for the lawyer, it's predictable. You're actually getting paid for the time that you spend doing the work. It's a lower risk of underpricing. It's easier for you if you're new to lawyering and you don't know how long things take for you to do to get a better compensation for the actual time spent doing the client's work. And also clients understand that model of billing as far as billing by the hour, billing in a tenth of an hour. It makes sense. Now, with all that being said, what are some of the cons of the hourly billing? Well, it caps your income because you can only get paid for so many hours in a day, right? You only have so much time in a day. So there's a limitation there on how much work you can produce, then in turn, how much you can earn. It doesn't really incentivize being efficient in getting your work done. All the time tracking that goes into the billing is really a mental drain for a lot of my lawyers. And then also the clients can feel anxious about hourly billing and they're like, oh, I can't call my lawyer. I can't email my lawyer. I'm going to get a big bill. And that's not the experience we want our clients to have. Now let's contrast that with what a flat fee model looks like. With the flat fee, it has a set price for a defined scope of service. This is going to be more common in your estate planning practice areas. I would say criminal law. I think even immigration, I see it quite a bit. A lot of practices where it's more transactional, you're going to see more flat fees. Now we went over the pros of hourly billing. Let's go over the pros of flat fee billing. Your income is not directly tied to the number of hours worked. It's going to encourage you to be more efficient, to have systems, to have processes. It's a better client experience because the client knows upfront what they're getting for that flat fee and don't have the same concerns about giving you a call or giving you an email because it's already all wrapped up into your flat fee. And I would actually say it's easier to scale your law firm if that is your desire when you have a flat fee model over an hourly model. And just as there was with hourly, there are cons to flat fees as well. One of the biggest ones is that you have a large risk of underpricing your services, especially if you do not know how much time it's going to take you to complete something, how much work goes into a certain type of task. If you're not sure on that, you certainly could underprice your services on a flat fee model. You have to have very strong boundaries, which in it of itself is not a con, but if you don't, the con is that you can find a client trying to add on things, asking you to do one more or write this letter also, things that aren't within your scope of service for the flat fee. So you have to be very careful that you are clear on what the flat fee includes and whatever is not included that you are charging additional for it. And going to a flat fee model, if you are a new attorney, can feel very risky when you're just starting out. And on that topic of being a newer attorney and just starting out, you want to make sure that you avoid the 7 mistakes that most law firm owners make. I have a free guide for you linked down below called The 7 Mistakes That Law Firm Owners Make and How to Avoid Them. Make sure you get that below. It's free. Now we've covered hourly, we covered flat fee, pros and cons of each. Let's get into the real nitty-gritty of both and how they're going to work or not work for you. Because this isn't really about billing, I would say. It's more about how you want to live your life and how you want to control your time and how you want to run your law firm. One of the first things that I will look at in comparing or trying to decide if I were going to do flat fee or hourly is looking at kind of the income ceiling, especially if you are a solo. If you are doing hourly, you are capped by time because there's only so many hours in the day. Whereas with flat fees, it's more scalable because it focuses on the value of the service you're providing and not how long it took you to get the job done for the client. Next, let's talk about your schedule. Because for me going solo, one of the big drivers for me going solo is that I want to control over my schedule. And when you are doing primarily hourly work, I feel like you are in a constant state of always being reactive and it's very client driven. Whereas with the flat fee model, I feel like you are more proactive instead of always being reactive. And it's more of a systems driven process. And I think it ties into running the business of your law firm in a more efficient way. And again, if you're like me and you want more control over your time, more flexibility, the freedom, and having higher income for yourself, flat fees make more sense in that scenario. But let's talk about the stress level because they both can have their own stressors. I feel like with hourly billing, it's always a constant time pressure for you as the attorney as far as how much time you're billing and making sure you're hitting whatever that goal is in that month. Whereas with a flat fee, the pressure is more upfront when you are in the consult with the client and talking about the price of the service that you're going to provide, whereas having to focus on continually hitting so many hours per month. And let's talk about the growth of your firm because some of you are going to want to stay solo, maybe have, one part-time support person, and some of you are going to want to add on associates and a bigger team for your law firm in the future. I think with hourly, it's very hard or it's harder to scale without hiring. You're going to need more people on the team because again, there's so many hours in the day for you. So you are going to be capped out at a certain amount. Whereas with flat fees, I think that it's easier to manage and to still grow for the solo because you can rely more on your systems and processes and delegation. I think you can rely on technology more because again, you're not tied to your billable hour. And now you know that I'm going to give you the behind the scenes about all things running a law firm. So let's talk about the mistakes that lawyers make with both pricing models. When it comes to hourly, the biggest problem I see lawyers have is that they are underbilling or they're not capturing all their time. And when it comes to underbilling, a lot of the lawyers that I talk to who underbill have some kind of guilt or feel bad about the invoice they're going to give the client. But if your fees are reasonable, you actually did the work that's on the invoice and you are invoicing your client at a regular basis. So if that's monthly, if that's bi-weekly, right? As long as you are doing so consistently and you set up expectations up front with a proper retainer deposit and the communication is there with the client, you should not feel bad. You should not be discounting or reducing your fees ahead of time without even giving the client a chance to see what the bill even says. And when you're doing your invoicing, making sure that you are describing what it is that you're doing or the value that the client is receiving from the work that you did. So underbilling or not capturing all your time. And so making sure that you are tracking your time if you're going to bill hourly. I don't care if it's a yellow pad next to your desk, if you're going to use your practice management software, if you have a timer, whatever you're going to use, make sure you are capturing that time that you're spending on that client's billable work. And another one that comes to mind with hourly is that I feel like a lot of times that can lead to my lawyers becoming the bottleneck in their own firm when it comes to getting paid. A lot of times the lawyer is the one who is not asking for a big enough retainer. The lawyer is the one not getting their billing done or not getting the invoices out each month. So that can lead to the lawyer, the owner, so you, being one of the problems in your own firm when it comes to hourly billing. And with all that said, there are some mistakes lawyers make with flat fees also, so let's get into them. Trying to guess at what your flat fee should be without actually knowing, without actually using data to support what fee you're going to charge. Also, and we talked about this earlier, not clearly defining the scope of what you're going to do. So if you're going to do XYZ amount of work for $5,000, you need to make sure that you are sticking to X, Y, and Z and not saying yes to everything else. If the client wants to add 1, 2, and 3, that's fine, but there's going to be an additional fee for that. And your engagement agreement should clearly state what is included in that flat fee And if there's anything else that's going to be added on, there's going to be additional fees charged. The client needs to know that out the gate. So which one is going to be right for you and for your practice? I would say hourly might be better if you're in a litigation heavy type practice where it's going to be more unpredictable, where you're not going to be able to really define the scope of practice because it's just such an unknown, there's too many variables that can come up in the case. That could be good for hourly. Also, if you are brand new to lawyering and you're not quite sure how much time, effort, energy goes into certain types of cases or matters, you might want to start off with hourly before you convert over to flat fees, which you can always do in the future. Now, how do you know if a flat fee structure is right for you? I would say if the services that you offer are more repeatable, if you want more control over your time and not being tied to the billable hour, if you are maybe not a new attorney, but you have experience in your practice area and you know how long things take, you know what it's like to work with clients and to integrate kind of all the time and the value of what you're providing. We want to make sure that with flat fees, we are focused on the value we're providing and not how long it took us to get there. We do consider how long it takes. That is a factor when it comes to a flat fee, but that's not the only factor in setting your flat fee. And if you are in a field where you want to be able to integrate technology and systems and processes to reduce how much time you have to work on a matter, but you're still providing the same or better value to client, a flat fee is probably going to be a better fit for you. And just thinking of long-term scalability, again, depending on the trajectory of your law firm, what your plans are for your law firm, a flat fee might get you there a lot faster. Now, we've gone over flat fees and hourly, but I want you to also remember that you don't have to be tied to just one. You also can do a hybrid. So in my firm, I am primarily flat fee. But I do have a couple of hourly matters where I could just not really readily define the scope of what I would be doing. There were too many unknowns, too many variables in the case. And so I did do hourly, and I still do hourly in certain types of cases. But overall, I would say I'm probably 90% flat fee in my firm. But just remember that as well, that you may have different practice areas. And some may be flat fee, some may be hourly, or you may have some matters where you start off on a flat fee, but then the add-ons become hourly based on what the client wants and needs at that point in time. Now, I would say to you, if you are unsure if you should do flat fee or hourly, is that I am all about the flat fee. I am a big proponent of the flat fee. But again, I have a hybrid. So maybe a hybrid is appropriate for you as well to do some flat fee with a little bit of hourly if it's needed or appropriate in the case. But try to go flat fee. That's been such a huge benefit to me and to my firm, and predictability and scalability. And again, it supports why I went solo. I wanted control over my time, my schedule, the hours, the flexibility. That's all parts of why I went solo, and maybe why you're thinking of going solo also. And flat fees totally support that. And the best part of it is that you get to decide. So that means you can change it. If you start out hourly and convert to flat fee, great. If you start out with flat fee and find it's not for you and want to go hourly, great. If you want to do a hybrid, great. You get to kind of test and see what works and pivot as you need to. And these are the conversations that we have as business owners who just happen to provide the service of legal services. So deciding on your fee structure is one of the business aspects of running your law firm. And I have another video talking about the business side of lawyering. So make sure you hop over there to look at the things that aren't always talked about when it comes to the business side of running a law firm. And I'll see you in the next one.